This is the Criterion Creeps podcast, and tonight we're talking about Ratcatcher from 1999, directed by Lynne Ramsay. Synopsis here from Letterboxd. James Gillespie is 12 years old. The world he knew is changing. Haunted by a secret, he has become a stranger in his own family. He is drawn to the canal where he creates a world of his own. He finds an awkward tenderness with Margaret Ann, a vulnerable 14-year-old expressing a need for love in all the wrong ways, and befriends Kenny, who possesses an unusual innocence in spite of the harsh surroundings.
That's descriptive, hey?
Yeah, it's evocative language, RJ.
Don't say that word, but I just mean like these things are all these letterbox reviews are always like either like so super vague or overly descriptive. There's no middle ground, you know? There's no middle ground, Jarrett.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. You know?
You know. Hey, RJ.
You know? What?
What do you know of British cinema? And I know this movie's Scottish, so it would be technically United Kingdom cinema, but I just like to say British cinema. This film fits right into that umbrella.
Well, since you brought it up, I just watched Billy Elliot. Does that count?
Yeah, that's like the flip side of British cinema. There's like it's like two-sided. There's like either these like the Oscar happy movies that like are like, oh, aren't British people charming? And then there's the Ratcatcher side of the equation, the With Nail and I side of the equation.
Aren't those charming also?
Well, charming in the sense that generally there's like they're gray.
Earl Grey.
Grimy.
Oh yeah, Earl Grimy.
A strain of miserableism that runs through everything.
Earl miserableism.
A rapeness to the films.
Yeah, in a way.
Yeah, an unintelligible accents theme.
Oh yes, yeah. If you can't have subtitles, which I couldn't for this movie, and I found it very difficult to follow. But I'm a professional, so I made it work.
Yeah, mostly just because it just makes you concentrate so much that you're like, this isn't easy to watch.
No, you're actively watching instead of passively watching, Jerry, and you're just like,
that's the sound I made.
I know.
Another hallmark is, of course, like horrible children, because kids are like real bad. Like, what is this?
The
Stephen
Gummo
King
kids.
Novel? Wow. Hey, don't jump the gun there yet.
Okay, we'll get there.
We'll get
to answer your question, so I just went to my Letterboxd all time, and you know how they have that nice little map down at the bottom? So I clicked on the UK, and it claims that I've watched 400 films produced in the UK, which I feel like is not the best aggregate of these things, because there's movies on here like Eddie the Eagle, Blade Runner 2049, Mute, Puppet Master, The Littlest Reich, like Baby Driver. So I don't think these are necessarily UK filmed, but it's because there's a UK producer on it. So other than that, though, I don't really know how to tell you about UK films, because without being able to find it on Letterboxd, I'm lost.
Okay.
Actually, wait, here's one. Isn't Neil Marshall from the UK?
Yes.
Well, he directed one of the absolute worst movies I've ever seen in Doomsday. So you can take that as it is for United Kingdom movies.
And he might have directed one of the worst movies of the year, Hellboy.
Hellboy. That remains to be seen, but people will know tomorrow, I guess, at the official release.
As the time of recording, just before we started, it looked like Rotten Tomatoes had it at 9%.
Oh, terrific.
But, okay, so like there's like a filmmaker you've never probably seen a movie of, Shane Meadows. His film's kind of like Shane Meadows. He falls into this kind of line. There was quite a school of like pretty well regarded English films, British films that were coming out in the 2000s. I got to watch a lot of these because my friend Amanda, she had lived in England for a couple years, and she was just like basically watching British TV and TV shows and like movies. And so when she moved back, she got a Region 2 player, and she was like, you got to come over and watch all this stuff. So I got quite a beat down on this. My friend Corey has long had a fascination, a real Anglophile with this stuff. So I have quite a bit of this floating around. Long Good Friday, another British movie that we watched online. But
I mean, I like the British movies.
Yeah.
I just couldn't find a good way to narrow my sight here on a specific like director or genre, because I was like, let me look up British movies, and it was like, here's just a handful of movies that some of them aren't even British. It's like, oh,
no,
okay,
there you go. So,
okay.
Anywho,
yes.
So this movie, this number kicks off with a bang.
Does it?
It's set in Glasgow, 1973. This is not the picturesque highlands of Rob Roy or Braveheart. No, RJ. This is some dingy urban squalor. No running hot water, no bathing facilities, no indoor toilets, and most importantly, no hope or escape. There's a kid hanging out with his downtrodden mother, going for a dip in the local canal. Him and another boy, they start doing a little bit of roughhousing, throwing mud in one another's eyes, and one thing leads to another, and now you've got a dead, drowned kid.
Good.
And then that kid that he was playing with turns out to be the protagonist. One of my favorite movies, Gummo, we get to experience this world through the eyes of a 12-year-old boy. And like RJ's favorite film, Gummo, we get ourselves some good old-fashioned cruelty to animals.
Oh boy, do we. Do we ever.
I don't want to ruin your spot here or anything like that. I mean,
no.
For a movie called Ratcatcher, I mean,
yes,
there's some sort of like hint, I think, there in the title that there might be something to be afoot.
I'll get to it.
So for the RJs in the crowd, we get scenes of children marching around literal piles of garbage accumulated during a garbage strike because of the overwhelming rat problem that emerges from not picking up garbage for weeks on end, and beating garbage bags with sticks because you got to flush out the rats somehow and then beat them to death with sticks. Now that doesn't necessarily be shown on screen, but there's definitely some
not quite.
There's some non-moving rats in this film.
Dogs too. If you hadn't noticed.
Well, it's debatable. It's like a flicker. You see a moment of it. There's not too much. It's hard to tell. It's like, was that a dog? I don't know. It's hard to tell. Could be a lot of things, RJ.
No, that was a dog.
But I want to save the money shot because it's going to be the accompanying image for the podcast episode. But we get that lovely scene of metaphor featuring a kindly mouse named Snowball, I believe, who is sent on a magical symbolic adventure on a helium balloon to the moon. But I will let RJ cover that one in more details.
Okay.
So anyway, so this movie, it is just like a snapshot, I guess, of a period of time that, like, I don't know, is probably unknown to the majority of people who are watching this outside of like people who probably grew up in Glasgow. So we're watching it here now, 2019. This movie came out in 1999. Even then, it was like a removed experience. But like you get the impression it's like, man, this was a horrible way of living for these people living in like public housing, I guess, waiting to get moved out into these new houses being built outside of town, amongst these beautiful fields. And there's like a wait list and priority. There's people like living, like shacking up with other people's what have yous. So their kids are all mixed up, and people are just like drinking away, waiting for their call up, I guess, to the main roster. And then, the parents are kind of finding jobs here and there, counting pennies, making sure there's food on the table. And the kids, they're kind of just left to their own devices. They don't go to school, seemingly. They roughhouse, they torture one another, and are basically as soon as like big tall kids come along, you're like, oh boy, where's this going to go?
The bullies.
And it's just like, oh yeah, kids suck. They're just the worst. I hate kids. I don't know. It's just like constant, like everyone's just catty and terrible in this film. And of course, like you can't really necessarily understand a lot of what they're saying because they are all speaking in a Scottish brogue, like a very casual working class Scottish accent that is like nonsense. It's one of those reasons I remember trying to watch Trainspotting in like high school. I never got into it because I just like had no idea what they were saying. This is one of those movies I should maybe revisit one day with subtitles. And with this one, I did not have access to those. That makes for a tough time.
Well, it's not available on the Criterion channel, Jarrett.
It's not.
But
at
apparently,
all.
if it had been, we wouldn't have been able to turn on subtitles anyways.
That's possible. It's possible.
At this point in time.
Yeah. So I mean, suffice to say, this is not an easy time of a movie. It deals with some like uncomfortable subject matter, just because it's just like everyone just seems like, what the fuck? There's like nothing good is going to come out of anyone's experience. Like you get these moments that are like, oh, that's a really nice, touching scene of like our kid here hanging out with like the 14-year-old who's like, she's having probably a much worse time than James. It's James,
others.
Right? Yeah,
Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy. He's like they're having fun. You had a bathtub scene because that's like the in thing right now.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever movie we watch or trailer has like people having baths. Like be it Curse of La Llorona or the Joker trailer or Pet Sematary.
We Were Never Really Here.
Yeah,
all of them.
Everyone's in bathtubs. Everyone's having a soak. Okay, but we get that scene. That's like I thought that was a well done scene. And like on the whole, like this movie, from like a visual cinematography standpoint, is pretty beautiful to look at. Like it's a really well shot movie. It's just that it's depicting dreary things, horrible things all the time. And yeah, we can talk about the climax, the conclusion of the film. But yeah, I don't know. This movie's not for everybody.
True.
It's a tough watch. It's nothing that probably most people are going to be like, I think I'm going to pop in Ratcatcher. I can't imagine.
You're not going to pop it in just for a casual like afternoon watch?
I don't know if it's many people's favorite movies, unless people are looking for a very particular thing. Oh, as far as actors go, there's like kind of one name, Tommy Flanagan, most famous as Chibs from Sons of Anarchy, sporting his infamous Glasgow smile that he got after getting the treatment outside of a nightclub after DJing some years ago. Yes,
is that what happened to him?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's a real thing. Glasgow smile, Chelsea smile.
I knew that like happened to him, but I didn't know like what had happened to him.
Well, if Wikipedia is to be believed, that is the cause of it. And hey, that's Scotland. I had a friend. He traveled to Scotland many years ago, and I remember him talking about like chavs. I'm not sure.
Chads?
Chavs. It's like it's like Chad, but with a V. Chavs.
What is that?
And they're like just hooligans walking around with Burberry hats and just drinking all the time, throwing bottles at passerbyers. That's like in my mind.
Green Street hooligans.
Yes, so that's kind of like one of my views of what Scotland is like. That is just like kind of a continuity. Ah, fuck. I don't know.
Continuity,
but not continuity. Continuity. Yeah. Anyway,
what are we talking about?
It carries over this like grimness. So I don't know if this movie is much of an exaggeration. I'm sure Scotland's very nice, but I don't know if I've seen too many like positive depictions of it. Because I even like, isn't it in your favorite movie Doomsday, directed by Neil Marshall? It's like Scotland is involved.
I don't know. That movie sucks.
Anyway,
so
yeah, the other thing I should mention too is that I forgot that this was actually the last Lynne Ramsay movie I hadn't seen, feature-length film.
You've seen that Werverin one, whatever it is?
I actually own that. And I've seen like probably like everybody. We Need to Talk About Kevin. And also most recently, You Were Never Really Here, which you just watched this week. I've seen all those movies. And there's definitely a similarity in all four of her feature films. I haven't seen any of her shorts or anything like that. But like just like the way she shoots, everything's like immaculately made. Like everything's beautifully shot. But at the end of the day, I don't really feel like a strong connection with any of the movies of hers that I've watched. Probably like I think the best one for me was probably We Need to Talk About Kevin, because actually it is. It's totally okay. But the one thing that she actually does really well through all these four movies is her use of music. Her use of pop music and like, or like there's like the one song, a song to her son from the mother or whatever from We Need to Talk About Kevin, which is like that. Like that was the first time I'd ever heard that song, and I was like, man, that's a beautiful song. But I don't know. those are my general kind of thoughts at the moment about Ratcatcher. RJ, what did you think of this movie?
Well, Jarrett, I'm sure that you probably expect me to have some opinions of this movie, as you alluded to, whatever words are, it doesn't matter. I find this movie extremely frustrating for a variety of reasons. The very obvious one is that I am a very vocal contingent on I'm very vocal about how I don't really like the use of animals in movies, especially and exquisitely done here as used as metaphors for things. I understand what the symbolism is or the meaning behind the use of animals are, either as a metaphor or just a very literal thing where it's like, oh, here's a horror movie. It's like, let's kill this dog. And it's like, oh, you probably didn't really need to do that. Or here's a metaphor here. It's like the people are rats. Do you get it? And it's like, all right, I don't totally love that either. So I hate that stuff. And there's a lot of things in this movie that I'm not really on board with. So I'll just get it out of the way first because I have some other things to say about this movie. Yeah, there's like dead rats around, and I'm sure they didn't like actually kill the rats, but maybe they did because people hold the rats in pretty low regard, which if you're listening to this and you have been, you probably know that I'm a strong supporter of the rat movement, and I think rats are super misunderstood, and I like them. So it's like that kind of stinks if they actually did kill some rats because rats are awesome and fuck them. There is a dead dog in this thing. It looks real. I don't know if it is. That'd suck if they did find a dead dog. But then there's the big one that you talked about, the snowball scene, in which a bunch of kids throw around a little mouse, which looks like it is edited in a way where it looks like it's not actually the kids doing it. However, that little mouse was being thrown around.
At least once.
Or at least moved
across the camera once. And close up, and then the other times it's like they're throwing around
but unabated by
a mouse shape,
something to stand on. Like this thing was free flying through space for a while.
That's okay. So the mouse is probably fine.
Could have been. And then there is the scene when you get the real life mouse with a string tied to its leg, or to its tail, which is not something good. The kids did that too. You can get something called. It's not like degloving, but it's basically like rats and mice. When you hold their tails like that, they can come off because it's not their body's weight is more than their. Doesn't matter. Anyways, so like, the balloon is tied to that rat or to the mouse, and the mouse does leave the window. I'm sure there was some guy with a huge net or something on top of that building, or like even the floor above that just grabbed that mouse. But that doesn't mean I like that at all. And yeah, you talked about these metaphors. Snowball the mouse flies to the moon and he meets all his mice friends and he's having a great time. But also, the thing I didn't like about that scene, Jarrett, was that it really didn't make sense to me. Because you have this kid who and it's even addressed in the movie. So I don't know if I'm missing part of what's underneath there, but you have the kid who's like, I'm going to work for the SPCA. And you're like, okay. And he has all these animals. And then one time kids are like, whatever, who cares about this mouse? But okay, here you go. Have him back. The kid's like, hey, check this out. I'm going to send this mouse to the fucking moon, and then does it. And then the kid takes a total 180 and he's like a complete nut bar now. He's walking around picking up dead rats and whipping them at people. I just didn't get it. I was like, what's up with this kid? What is the turn here? What is this supposed to represent? What part of people is this supposed to represent? Is this a UK thing? Is this a people thing? So that was what I was most frustrated with. That I was like, I don't really understand
because he had to step up his game. He had to out crazy them all.
But I feel like it came out of nowhere, and I was just like, I don't understand this. I don't know where this kid's motivation came from, or his complete change of personality. So animal stuff aside, I was just like, I just plain don't get that. So that's the animal stuff, and I had to be upfront with that. And when I started, I said I found this movie extremely frustrating because those are big things for me. Those are kind of deal breakers, as I'm sure you know. And I find it frustrating because I think the rest of the movie is really good. I actually really like this movie, which I think you might find surprising, as you like to state that I don't like dirty people, or like poor people, which isn't totally the case.
Not totally the case.
Not totally the case. It's the circumstances of which it's depicted sometimes. But I was actually I was really enjoying this movie. And then there would be a scene where it was like something with the mouse again, or it'd be another dead rat, and I was just like, I was like, I get it, like, enough, move on from this shit. So like those things really took me out of it, and I don't think it's just because I am this like bleeding heart activist about animals or anything. I just think it's like, I don't think you need any of that stuff. I think it really takes you out of these things. And so yeah, I was just like, man, that's a bummer, because I actually think the rest of this movie is really good. I like the story that they're telling here, and I like how it's like this thing built on this one kid, and it's this guilt, and it's a very like big thing in this movie, but I think you can even use that into smaller things, because nobody feels guilt and shame better than like a little kid or like a young teenager. That's like made for those people, and it's how we learn, and it's how like people learn how to behave in a society or like with other people. It's like, because sometimes you do something and then like you don't get the response you think is going to happen, and then you feel really fucking bad. You're like, oh shit, I did a bad thing. So I think this movie is like a good statement on that stuff. And I know that it's about like way more than that. It's about the scene and the place at the time, and all these other things about people in general. But I actually like that aspect of it, because like I think this is a really good study on like just guilt and shame. And I think that the kid's story is really interesting, like how he interacts with all the other people, and how like it kind of like it just rains shit on this kid the whole movie, where he's like, I accidentally killed my best friend, and then now it's like, I think I maybe just fucked up my family because I let in some social workers when I wasn't supposed to. And then it's like, now I did this and now I did that, and it's like all these bad things. But then it's also like kind of hopeful, where you see him and he's like looking at what he wishes his life was, and you're like, oh, that's kind of sad, but also like a nice thing to have in here. And it really reminded me like the window out into the field.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a perfect description of this movie, where it's like out in the field is the movie that I'm enjoying, but inside the shit house is all the animal stuff that's like piled on top of it. And I was like, why can't I just have that like that thing out in the distance? I was like, what a perfect like summer like way to represent all these things I feel about these movies. So I kind of was really into this, some of like those parts, but a lot of the other things, it's like I said, they're kind of deal breakers for me, where I was just like, fuck, I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't like that they use that stuff, and I feel like it's kind of shitty that they do, and I don't totally get it. But I think it, like, especially not even just for like a first movie, I think in general, I think this is a really well made movie. I think Lynne Ramsay is a really good like quiet storyteller, and I say that all the time, and I don't mean it in the same way sometimes. Like in this one, I think she has a really nice way of like letting the story kind of unfold. Like that whole first 10 minutes when the kid dies, and you see the lady who like is watching it from like the window. I think that stuff is great, because it's
James's mom.
Yeah, his mom, and like she sees it and stuff, and like you said, like with the music in the background and stuff, and there's not really a lot of dialogue. Like it's literally quiet.
Well, you get that great kind of capturing of that moment of like seeing something horrible happening to like, oh, is that my kid? And then you're like, oh, thank God it wasn't mine. And that's like I don't even give a shit what happened to that kid. I'll feel bad about that later, but right now I'm like, whew.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, for me too, it's not even that it's like the absence of dialogue. It's that there's the way it's like paced and kind of put together. It's just, it really flows well. So I really like that aspect of her movies. And there's like individual like little character moments that I think are good. I think the mom who's son dies. I think everything with her, she's not in this movie a lot.
No, because they get rehoused.
Yeah, so I thought the stuff with her was great, and then everything with the main kid James, I actually liked his story quite a bit. Like all the inner turmoil he was going through with like what he did, what he was feeling, and then the hopes for other stuff. So it's like I said, I find this movie really frustrating because I actually really like the story. I just don't care for all that other stuff that's like bumped on top of it, because I feel like it's excessive and unnecessary, even when it is in the metaphorical symbolisms section. So I'm pretty split on this movie. I like the story quite a bit. I think all that other stuff kind of stinks.
Yep.
So that's my take on Ratcatcher.
Well, so how do you the movie that like immediately comes to mind in like doing a compare contrast is George Washington, because it's like very much in the same ballpark. It came out within like a year of one another, and both are, but they've tackled this idea of like, I mean, I don't even honestly, when I was watching this, I never really got into the whole thing about James feeling guilty. Honestly, at all.
Come off superficial,
I think there's like so much other stuff going on that like, I mean, it's more just about like the depiction of the living conditions of that world. And it just kind of builds to like the end of the movie, which is like, oh, so you know, the military comes and cleans up the garbage, and then James is like, oh, this is going to be my life, huh? And he decides to go take that plunge into the canal, and then then we cut away to like, oh look, they're coming across the hill into the wheat field. Oh, they've made it. And you're like, wait a minute, wouldn't you just drive? Why are they walking this awkward way? Oh, right, because he's dead.
Because he's dead.
And
he did it.
Yeah, he did it. He's a hero now.
I thought of George Washington too, but I think this is a way more competent movie than like George Washington was, because I think you and me were on the same page for that one, where we were both kind of like, meh. Did you get those sounds that I just made?
Yeah, I picked them up. Don't you worry.
So, I don't know. What did you think of Ratcatcher? Evocative.
It's like a good movie. Like I think like
better than George Washington.
Yes. Oh yeah. I didn't like George Washington much, but yeah, no, like it's good, but like again, it's like I don't know. I like in comparing this to like Gummo, like I love Gummo. I think Gummo is amazing. Like it's kind of because it's so weird. Like it's got like this like ridiculous quality to it. Like albino rhino, you get like just it's just like some of those scenes in that film, just like I will never forget. Ratcatcher, I don't think I'll probably think much about like ever again. Honestly,
I think I would, but like I would honestly like to rewatch this, but I just don't like the animal stuff. I thought it was dumb. I was like, I don't like that.
That's part of the thing though too. Is like when I'm watching these movies now, it's kind of like, what's RJ going to think about this? Like that kind of like ruins movies for me, honestly. So
good though. Remember, someone asked that one time. It's like, does it ruin movies for you? And it's like, I hope it does.
Well,
because it ruined it for me.
But then it's just kind of like, oh, why even bother doing it? I guess it's
because you want to know what my opinion is, Jarrett.
No, but it's more like, oh, what's the conversation going to be like?
Well, I feel like so. I realize that's the case, but did I also kind of give a counter to that in describing Ratcatcher? Because I'll talk about the animal stuff, but I feel like I tried to talk about what I thought of the movie in general outside of that.
It's no Walkabout.
No, fucking Walkabout sucks. The movie's dumb. Hey, where do you put Ratcatcher in terms of the Bob Costas? Bob Costas?
What?
What am I talking about? We're not
Bob Costas, sports journalist.
Oh man, what are we talking about? No, I didn't mean Bob Costas.
Oh my God, RJ's broken. He broke.
Bob Hoskins.
What about Bob Hoskins?
Where do you put Ratcatcher in terms of those two British endeavors?
Like Mona Lisa?
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I'm just trying to rein it back here a little bit, Jared. Bring things back onto where
I'd say. I mean, I'd say it's. I think it's. I'd say it's better than those two.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so.
Yep. Good.
Good.
Good
old Neil Jordan over there. But
what about Neil? Oh, not Neil Marshall, right?
Yeah. Well, he directed Mona Lisa anyway. Anyway, yeah.
So you liked Ratcatcher? Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I think it's good. Like, I think it's like a good movie, but like, it doesn't push itself over. Like, it doesn't go into like that echelon of like kind of like grimy coming of age stories.
So maybe I like it a little bit more because I don't like those extreme grimy things like you do.
This is pretty extremely grimy.
It is, but like I don't know. I don't think a lot matches up with the Gummos of the world.
Well, what can?
Exactly, but since that's such a
Welcome to the Dollhouse, which you haven't seen.
I haven't been there yet.
Oh, you gotta swing by.
What's John Waters' representation on the Criterion channel? Oh, we can't look up directors, right?
No, but that's not John Waters.
Or what's his name?
Todd Solondz.
Oh yeah.
It would just be Dark Horse at this moment because that's in the Criterion Collection if it's on there. Anyways, RJ.
Yeah.
Who hates George Washington? Who hates Ratcatcher?
Yeah, who does hate Ratcatcher?
That was interesting. Half a star. Chris Browning.
Chris Brown, the rapper?
Browning.
Oh.
Terminally overrated art film by numbers. Name one thing that this film does that's new or different or is not derivative. It's nicely derivative, yes, but it's also achingly boring, as if there's a big stew of British art film cliches that's been overcooked and forced down our throats. I have no idea how this is a good reputation at all. Rubbish.
Oh, rubbish, eh? Is that what Chris Browning thinks?
That's what Chris Browning
says. Oh, really,
says.
Jarrett? Is that what he thinks? Jarrett?
Are you buying time?
No, I'm on his page. I found some interesting things here. He likes a lot of, like, I don't know, the obvious things you'd think he likes. Lots of David Lynch stuff, some Psychos, things like that. But then I find some striking things in his 5-star movies. Gremlins, as you mentioned on that one list in the preamble, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is a 5-star affair. Lots of Doctor Who specials as 5-star affairs, which is weird. A Dark Song, which we both like.
Yeah.
But then Midnight Special, 39 Steps, those aren't like 5-star movies. But then when we get to the half-star movies, things get even wilder. Half-star for Mother, half a star, Jarrett, for a movie called Martyrs, half a star for The Fountain, half a star for your favorite movie, Beyond the Dumpness. There's some Doctor Who's in here too. Wow, what a interesting, diverse thing of movies. Wow. I don't know, and there's like lots of obscure horror stuff, but it seems like he's all over the map. Half a star for Jingle All the Way? That's weird.
1.5 star. Dave Vonderhaar on a rewatch.
Oh, Vonderhaar.
I watched this several months ago and just completely forgot to log it. So little an impact did it have on me. I've loved Ramsay's other films, but this one never rose above the indie misery porn cliche you'd expect from that terrible cover art. Underage nudity? Check. Death of a child? Ironic use of pop songs? Check. Absurd
pop songs?
Yeah, Nick Drake in there. I mean,
call
that pop. There's some songs like that. Absurd escapist fantasy non sequitur scene? Check. People running through fields of grain at the magic hour? Check. And on and on and on and on. I'm stunned this was made by the same woman who would go on to make Mauvern Calar.
I've never seen that, but that sounds ridiculous.
You know what? So far, though, I don't disagree with the criticisms. I disagree with the star ratings. I don't think it's this bad as people would say. But I can definitely see like these things being pretty irksome because it does fall into those. It's like it's kind of like on that line for me, and I think because I'm like, if 10, 15 years ago, I'd be like far more like, oh my god, this is a brilliant thing. And I think now I'm kind of like, yeah, this is like definitely a mode. Like people make these decisions because they want to fit into this type of filmmaking, and it's not going to be for everybody. It's kind of like critic movies. Like you're basically making movies that are going to be viewed that particular way. Whatever.
Keep going.
Where do you go? You go. You tell me about Dave.
So another movie that was on that list you mentioned in the preamble. One of their favorite movies is Speed Racer. Probably totally unironically, right? So also 5-star movies are like Green Room and Bellflower, which is a movie we both really like.
Yeah.
But then there's like Jurassic World, 5 stars. Split.
What?
5 stars. Yeah. Jurassic World and Split, both 5 stars. But again, in the crazy thing, so I didn't mention this before, but in the half stars, this person and the last person both gave Triangle a half a star, which I don't think is totally fair. No. But this person has Justice League half star, which is probably fair. Yeah. But It's a Wonderful Life half a star. Son of Saul half a star.
Okay.
Jarrett?
Okay.
Dogtooth half a star.
Okay. That's quite enough.
Yeah, you see what I mean? Yeah. You see what I mean, Jarrett? You see what I mean?
They're just making a point.
Yeah, making a point about making a point. I just went to their 100 favorite movies, and apparently Bellflower is number 1.
Ooh,
weird. That's a good movie, but I don't know about number 1.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Okay, last one here. This is a lengthy one. 2 stars, Justin Willis.
Okay.
I think it's 2 stars.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Lynne Ramsay's directing, but excluding an incredibly precise camera and shot composition, there isn't much fun to be had in Ratcatcher. Upon further reading of the film, I realized I should have studied up on the political climate of Scotland in the 1970s because I was almost entirely lost as to what the film was talking about. It didn't help that the accents were incredibly thick, and despite my best efforts, I couldn't access subtitles. That also probably didn't help with my experience, not really understanding a ton of what was being said, because mumbled.
Me also.
So I mean that doesn't help. Maybe I need to give the film a second chance, both knowing what to expect and with subtitles in check. But as it stands, Ratcatcher was a hard-to-follow coming-of-age story set in an economically destroyed Glasgow. The plot flows much in the same way as something attempting to emulate 400 Blows. There's another coming-of-age tale. The audience observes a young boy and his various adventures throughout his little town, like Paris. However, where 400 Blows is able to take these seemingly random, unconnected events and string together development, I personally never saw that connection with Ratcatcher. The young boy has several rather traumatic events occur throughout the film, but they aren't brought back up again, and the boy's acting almost indicates they phased through him emotionally. The final scene left me more bewildered, like Ramsay was trying to say something evocative, yet unearned. None of the cast particularly stood out, nor was one moment more impactful than the next. Only one scene, the bus sequence, will linger in my mind. That's the one with Nick Drake. But only because the shots of grain, although with 0.01% of the budgeted beauty, used the fields of wheat to symbolize freedom, much like Malick did in To the Wonder. Overall, I think Ratcatcher is indicative of an up-and-coming director at her start, showing plenty of style, but lacking in a solid narrative or purpose.
Oh, is that what it is, Jarrett?
And then they concluded, caught up on reviews, bring on Sundance.
Oh. Yippee. Things that are dated that are super relevant.
2017.
When you read them on podcasts 2 years later that they have no idea that they're writing the review for.
Yeah.
So 5-star movies, Jarrett, are like good things like, I don't know, Whiplash, Shawshank, Silence of the Lambs, Truman Show. But there's also like Boyhood, 400 Blows, am I right? The Big Sick, 8th Grade, no thank you. But so then we get to these 1-star reviews, and I found some more interesting weird things. So 1-star reviews include things like Get Out, which is weird. That doesn't seem like a 1-star movie. But Once Upon a Time in America, which I haven't seen, but that's been coming up a lot in the negatives of people who hate these movies. Paradise Lost 2, 1-star. Bizarre. Then there's movies like Stalker, 1-star. But here's where I really get torn away. Jingle All the Way, again, is getting fucking beat up by these people. I don't get that. But there's things like Clock Stoppers. That's a cool movie. Titan A.E., The Never-Ending Story. These aren't like 1-star movies. You're not being fair. Wild Wild West isn't a 1-star movie. That's a great movie. Don't you think?
No.
Jarrett? Wild Wild West isn't a 1-star movie, though.
It probably is.
What about Cats and Dogs?
Yep.
Are you serious?
Probably.
I'm done with this podcast. Woo-hoo. But I think my other points stand.
Okay.
I have good opinions.
Yeah. Well, that's
listen to them.
That's Ratcatcher.
Yeah, that is. It's like I said. I was surprised that I actually liked it the way that I did, but I also was like, I don't like any of this other stuff. So there you go.
There you go.
Yep.
After the break.
Yep.
We're walking into that canal.
For good this time?
And then we'll walk over that beautiful wheat field, Elysian Fields, to our new house that will be really shitty really soon. But we don't talk about that part.
It depends on how you treat it, dude. But
we're actually dead.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Finally.